The days that followed were some of the darkest I've ever known. I tried to keep busy, to fill out applications, to network, to put on a brave face. But every time I looked over at Lisa, scrolling on her phone or sighing dramatically when I tried to talk about my job search, that cold, sinking feeling in my gut got deeper. She stopped asking how the job hunt was going, not that she ever really asked in the first place. It was as if my entire career, and everything it meant, was just a passing inconvenience to her. And every day she pulled further away. I'd catch her on her phone at all hours, typing furiously and then snapping it shut the moment I walked into the room. Once, I saw her smile at a message she'd just received, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. It felt like a punch to the gut. I tried to brush it off. I didn't want to be the kind of man who jumps to conclusions. But the doubt was there, growing like a weed in my chest. The house felt colder, emptier. Meals were eaten in silence. At night, she lay beside me like a stranger. And every morning, she'd get up and dress with meticulous care, spending hours in front of the mirror before she left for work. Work that I knew she hated, yet suddenly she seemed excited to go. One night, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I reached for her, desperate for some connection, some sign that she still cared. "Lisa," I said softly, my voice trembling, "I know this is hard for you too, but I'm trying. I'm trying so damn hard." She pulled away, turning to face the wall. "I can't do this, Mark," she said, her voice like ice. "I can't live like this anymore." "Like what?" I asked, my heart pounding. "We're in this together, aren't we? I'll get another job. Things will go back to normal." She laughed bitterly, a sound that made my blood run cold. "Normal? Mark, you're just stuck. And I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I'm not going to let your problems drag me down too." I lay there in the dark, feeling like the world had tilted beneath me. The woman I loved, the woman I thought would stand by me no matter what, was already planning her exit. I could see it in her eyes, hear it in her voice. But I didn't have proof, just a gnawing feeling that something was very, very wrong. The next day I decided to stop being the passive victim. I started paying closer attention. I watched the way she clutched her phone like a lifeline, the way she always seemed to have somewhere to be that didn't involve me. She'd leave for hours at a time, claiming she was working late or meeting friends. But when I asked who she was with, she'd get defensive, her eyes narrowing. "You're paranoid," she snapped one night when I asked too many questions. "You're just trying to find someone else to blame for your own failures." Her words stung like acid, but they only made me more determined to find the truth. I started noticing little things, her perfume lingering in the hallway long after she'd left, a new dress she hadn't told me about, unfamiliar names popping up on her phone screen when I caught a quick glance. I told myself maybe I was imagining things, maybe it was just the stress, but deep down, I knew. I knew her heart was somewhere else, and I couldn't bear the thought of it. One evening, when she said she was going out with friends, I offered to drive her. She gave me a tight smile, her eyes wary. "No, it's fine," she said quickly. "I'll just take an Uber." I watched her go, my chest tight with suspicion. After she left, I sat there in the silent house, staring at the door she'd walked through. My mind was racing. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who checks up on his wife, who follows her around like some pathetic fool. But I couldn't ignore the ache in my chest, the voice in my head telling me that everything was unraveling. That night, I sat up in bed, listening to the echo of the front door closing hours later. She didn't say a word as she slipped into bed beside me, her back turned, her breathing even. But I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind playing out every scenario, every possibility. I didn't have the proof yet, but I had the feeling, the gut-deep certainty that something was broken, and that it was only a matter of time before the cracks split wide open, revealing the truth I was so afraid to face. The morning after she slipped back into bed without a word, I woke up with a fire in my chest. I couldn't take the lies anymore. I needed to know, once and for all, so I made a decision. I was going to find the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I waited until Lisa was out of the house, claiming she had an early meeting. As soon as the door clicked shut, I sat there in the quiet, feeling my heart pound in my throat. I told myself this was wrong, that I shouldn't invade her privacy. But then I remembered that look in her eyes, the way her voice turned cold every time I tried to reach out. And I knew I didn't have a choice. I started with her laptop. She always left it open on the dining table, a habit from her late-night scrolling. My hands trembled as I navigated to her email, my pulse roaring in my ears. It was locked, of course, password protected. But I knew Lisa better than she thought I did. After a few tries, using the name of her childhood pet and our wedding anniversary, I was in. The first thing I saw was a folder labeled Personal, buried deep in the archives. My gut twisted as I clicked it open. Hundreds of emails, messages, and receipts spilled out onto the screen. Each one a tiny puzzle piece, each one a slap across the face. There were messages with a man named Eric, some flirty, some heartbreakingly intimate. They'd been meeting up for months, dinner dates, weekend getaways, late-night phone calls. It was all there in black and white. My eyes burned as I read. His words, "Can't wait to see you tonight. You looked amazing in that dress. I love you, baby." I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, but I forced myself to keep reading. I had to know everything. I found hotel receipts, dinner reservations, even photos, selfies of them together in places she'd told me she was going with her friends. I felt like my chest was going to implode. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the laptop down just to catch my breath. But I couldn't stop. I needed to see it all. I needed to know the full truth. I spent hours piecing it together, printing screenshots, saving files, creating a folder on my own computer with every scrap of evidence I could find. It felt like I was building a case in a courtroom, and in a way I was. I couldn't confront her without proof. I couldn't let her twist it around on me, make me out to be the villain in my own story. And as I worked, something in me shifted. The heartbreak was still there, sharp and raw, but beneath it, a new feeling was growing. Resolve. I wasn't going to let her break me. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me and then spin some story to make herself feel better about what she'd done. I started to pay attention to the finances too. Lisa had always handled most of the bills. She said it was easier that way, and I trusted her. But now, with my eyes wide open, I started digging deeper. I found charges on our joint account I didn't recognize. Fancy dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel stays I never shared with her, gifts that weren't for me. I printed everything. I made copies and backups. I started calling credit card companies, asking for itemized statements. The more I dug, the more I found, and each new discovery felt like another piece of armor slipping into place. I wasn't going to let her destroy me, not without a fight. But I didn't stop there. I started reaching out to people I trusted, my brother, who always had my back, and my oldest friend, Alex, who'd been with me through every high and low. I didn't tell them everything yet, just enough for them to know I needed their support. Their quiet loyalty was a balm on my battered heart, a reminder that even if Lisa didn't love me anymore, I wasn't alone in the world. In the evenings when Lisa came home, I played my part. I smiled. I asked about her day. I acted like the clueless husband she thought she had. But inside, I was watching, listening, gathering every scrap of evidence, every tiny detail that would make her lies crumble when the time came. The emotional struggle was still there, of course. Every time she brushed past me like I was invisible, every time she laughed at something on her phone, I felt like my chest was being crushed in a vice. But I let the pain feed my determination. I used it to keep going, to stay focused. Because I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was becoming a strategist. And when the time came, I was going to show her exactly how much I knew. She thought she could walk away without a backward glance. But she was about to learn that some betrayals don't stay hidden forever, and that I was done being the man she thought she could ignore. The day I decided to confront her, the sky was heavy with rain. It felt fitting, like the universe itself was bracing for the storm that was about to break inside our home. I waited until she came home from work, her hair damp from the drizzle, her expression as cold and detached as ever. She barely spared me a glance as she hung up her coat and slipped off her heels, her phone clutched tight in her hand. "Hey," I said, my voice calm, too calm. "We need to talk." She sighed, already annoyed. "Mark, not tonight. I'm tired." "No," I said, my tone firm. We're doing this now." Her eyes flickered with something, maybe annoyance, maybe fear, but she didn't say anything. She just crossed her arms and leaned back against the kitchen counter, like she was daring me to go on. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I'd discovered over the past weeks. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I know about Eric," I said. The name tasted like poison in my mouth. "I know about the messages, the hotel rooms, the dinners, all of it." Her face went white, the blood draining so fast I thought she might faint. But she recovered quickly, her expression twisting into something cold and defensive. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're making this up." I didn't flinch. I walked over to the dining table where I'd laid out everything: the printed emails, the screenshots, the receipts. I spread them out like a dealer laying down cards in a game I knew I was going to win. "I'm not making anything up," I said quietly. "I have proof. Every lie, every secret you thought you could hide from me, it's all here." She stared at the table, her lips parting as she scanned the damning evidence. For a moment, she looked like she might crumble, but then she straightened, her eyes hardening into something almost cruel. "So what?" she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think this changes anything? You lost your job, Mark. You lost everything that made you, you. And I was done waiting for you to find your spine." Her words cut deeper than any of the betrayal I'd uncovered. I felt my hands ball into fists at my sides, the fury and heartbreak swirling like a storm inside me. But I didn't let it show. I forced myself to stay calm, to keep my voice steady. "You didn't just betray me, Lisa," I said, my voice low. "You betrayed the vows we made, the life we built together, and you think I'm just going to walk away and let you pretend like you're the victim here?" She snorted, a harsh laugh that grated against my raw nerves. "You're pathetic, Mark. Always have been. I did what I had to do. I refuse to waste my life on someone who can't even provide for me." I stared at her, feeling something inside me shatter. But instead of breaking, I felt a cold, clear sense of purpose settle in my bones. "You're right about one thing," I said, my voice steel. "I'm not going to waste any more of my life on someone who can't see my worth. But I'm also not going to let you walk away from this without consequences." I stepped closer, my gaze locked on hers. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I told her. "I've gathered everything, every financial record, every text, every piece of evidence. You want out of this marriage? Fine. But you're not taking everything with you. I'm not going to let you rewrite this story to make me the villain." She blinked, her composure cracking for the first time. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "Oh, I would," I said, my voice icy calm. "Because I've spent too long letting you control the narrative. You want freedom? You've got it. But you're not walking away with my dignity. Or my future." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Save it, Lisa. I'm done listening to your excuses. I'm done begging for scraps of affection from someone who never really loved me." The rain outside pounded harder against the windows, like a drumbeat in my chest. I felt alive for the first time in weeks, like I'd finally woken up from a nightmare. She turned away, her shoulders shaking with silent fury. But I didn't care. I had my truth. I had my plan. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. As I watched her retreat into the shadows of the house, I realized that the man who had walked out of that office months ago, the man who thought he'd lost everything, was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who refused to be broken. The confrontation was over, but the war was just beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. In the days that followed, the house became a battleground of quiet tension. Lisa tried to act like nothing had happened, slipping back into her old routines as if she could will away the truth I'd laid bare. But it was different now. The silence wasn't just heavy, it was final. I met with the lawyer I'd spoken to, handing over the folder of evidence I'd spent weeks gathering. He looked it over, nodding grimly. "This is more than enough," he said. "She won't be able to lie her way out of this." Hearing him say it out loud was like a weight lifting from my chest. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Word started to spread among our friends and family. Lisa tried to control the story, of course, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd become paranoid, that I was making up lies because I couldn't handle losing my job. But the evidence spoke for itself. The dinners, the hotels, the texts that left no room for doubt. It was all there, undeniable and cold. One by one, the people she'd counted on to take her side began to see her for who she really was. She lost friends. She lost the respect of people who'd once admired her. I watched it happen, and even though it should have felt like vindication, there was a part of me that still ached for what we'd had, for the woman I thought she was. But I refused to let that part of me take over. I refused to let it weaken the resolve that had carried me this far. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. She tried to fight for more than her fair share, but the proof I'd collected shut her down at every turn. My lawyer made sure of it. She walked away with less than she'd demanded, and I walked away with my head held high. Even now, there are moments when the old hurt flares up, like a phantom pain in a long-healed wound. I'll see a couple laughing together at a restaurant, and for a second, it's like I'm back in those early days with Lisa, back when I believed in us completely. But then I remember the cold look in her eyes, the way she turned her back on me when I needed her most. And I remind myself that I survived, that I found a way to stand up for myself when everything else fell apart. I've started to find my footing again. Slowly, carefully, I'm rebuilding the pieces of my life that she tried to take from me. I'm not the same man I was before this all started. I'm stronger now, wiser too. I know my worth, and I know that sometimes the hardest battles leave behind the strongest hearts. In the quiet aftermath, as the rain finally stopped and the sun broke through the clouds, I felt a strange, bittersweet sense of peace. She'd tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she only freed me from a life built on lies. And that was the real victory. In the months that followed the divorce, I learned how to live in a world without her. At first, every day felt like walking through a graveyard, quiet, lonely, and full of memories I didn't know how to let go of. But eventually, something shifted. One morning, I woke up and realized I was no longer waiting for her to come back. I wasn't waiting for her apologies or explanations. I was just moving forward. I started small. I cleaned out the house, stripping away every trace of her. I got rid of the fancy dresses she'd left behind, the expensive lotions she'd always liked to buy, the little trinkets that once meant something, but now only reminded me of betrayal. Each trip to the donation bin felt like peeling off another layer of her shadow, and with every bag I carried out, I felt lighter. I found work again, nothing as glamorous as my old job, but honest work that paid the bills and kept me busy. It felt good to have a purpose, to know I could rely on myself. And the funny thing is, I was happier in that simple job than I'd ever been in the office where I lost everything. I learned that what I do doesn't define me. Who I am does. My brother and Alex stuck by me, always there to share a beer and remind me that I wasn't alone. Even some of the friends who drifted away came back around, offering quiet support once the truth about Lisa came out. Their loyalty was a balm to my battered soul, proof that not everyone in my life was built to leave when things got hard. There were nights when the ache would come back, when I'd lie in bed and wonder how someone I loved so much could lie so easily. But those nights grew fewer and further between, and each time they came, they left a little quicker, replaced by a calm acceptance that not every story ends the way we want it to. I started spending more time outside, running in the early mornings, feeling the burn in my lungs and the wind on my face. It was a kind of freedom I hadn't felt in years. The city looked different when I wasn't weighed down by worry and fear. It felt alive, like there was possibility around every corner. One evening I ran past a couple sitting on a park bench, holding hands and laughing like the world couldn't touch them. And instead of feeling the familiar sting of loss, I felt hopeful. I realized then that love isn't something that can be stolen or broken beyond repair. It's something we carry inside, waiting for the right person to share it with. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever love someone the way I loved Lisa. But I do know that I'll never settle for someone who doesn't see my worth. I won't waste another minute on a love that isn't real. And that, I think, is the greatest lesson of all. In losing her, I found myself. I found a man who knows how to stand tall, even when the world tries to knock him down. A man who can look in the mirror and see someone worthy of respect, of loyalty, of a love that's real and true. I'm not the same man who lost his job and watched his marriage fall apart. I'm stronger now. I'm wiser. And I'm ready to build a life that's mine alone, one brick at a time, one honest day at a time. That's the real victory, and it's enough. Looking back, I realized that sometimes it takes losing everything you thought you needed to see what truly matters. I lost my job. I lost the woman I thought was my forever. But in the ashes of those losses, I found something far more valuable: myself. I learned that resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up when you do. It's about refusing to let someone else's betrayal define you, about standing tall even when your heart feels like it's breaking in two. I discovered a strength in me I never knew I had, a quiet kind of strength that doesn't need anyone's approval or validation to feel real. I've learned that justice doesn't always come in the form of revenge or grand gestures. Sometimes it's just the quiet satisfaction of knowing you didn't let their lies become your truth. Sometimes it's about walking away with your head held high, no matter how heavy your heart feels. Most of all, I've learned that loyalty isn't something you can demand. It's something that's earned, and when it's broken, you don't have to keep carrying the pieces. You can set them down and walk away. You can choose to keep your heart open for the right person, the one who sees you for who you really are and stands by you through the storms. I don't pretend to have it all figured out. Some days, the echoes of what happened still follow me like shadows at dusk. But those echoes remind me of how far I've come. They remind me that even the deepest wounds can heal, that even the hardest truths can lead to something better. So, if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt like the ground was crumbling beneath your feet, remember this: you are stronger than you know. You are worth more than someone else's lies. And sometimes, the hardest chapters of your life are the ones that show you just how powerful your own story can be. Because in the end, we don't get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose who we become because of it. And that choice, every single day, is what makes us unstoppable.